We almost had everybody wearing a different shirt.
All right, we will call this meeting to order at 6:30 PM. If everyone would like to join us in the pledge, please stand now. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, are there any amendments to the agenda this evening?
Mrs. Chair, we have none to request. Thank you.
All right, moving right along. Next item on the agenda is community input. And I do not see anyone in our audience for community input, so we'll move right along to quarterly report on the school board goals. Dr. Schaefer.
Thank you, Mrs. Chair. We'll update the board tonight on the quarterly goals, which include district operations, district finance, and district educational goals. I incorrectly put in there operations goals twice, but it is our educational goals. The operations goal, just a reminder, was to implement our FMX software, and that's now at about 95% complete. We've made really good progress here through the springtime. The FMX team came in and they completed their on-site work, which included tagging all of our equipment with QR codes. They scanned those into our software, uploaded the inventory into the software that way. The building mapping is also operational with north, most of south, a little bit left due to construction. Middle school and the new classrooms at the high school are now loaded in as far as mapping. The remaining work to do then is to add, obviously, the remaining mapping from South Elementary and high school due to construction, and they've made really great progress spring and summer on that. The other part of the operations goal was to conduct an updated demographic study. That is underway with our enrollment data already sent to McKibben Demography, who's doing the study. That study will be completed in late October after we finish our membership report, which is taken in October at the 1st, but then there's a couple-week cleanup period after that, so it'll be mid to late October when they can finalize it, and we are planning to have a board presentation then on the updated study at the November regular school board meeting. Probably Jerry McKibben from McKibben Demography will be here to present that. On the finance goal, that is still ongoing with our current building projects and master campus plan making good progress. The projects are within scope and budget, as we heard at the June board meeting. The debt service rate adjustment, which is another part of the goal, to 80 cents was on track until recent legislation changed that, which affected our assessed valuation, and that changed the trajectory of how we'll need to manage the debt service and our operations rates and levies moving forward. So we met this past week with the professionals at Policy Analytics to learn more about this impact. They're developing models and learning and putting that out as they get their heads around it. So beginning in 2026, taxpayers will begin to receive increased tax deductions. The standard flat dollar amount deduction will go away, which is our basic deduction that you get on mortgages, or on your taxes, I should say. And the supplemental percentage-based deduction will begin to increase over a 6-year period to a full rate of a 66% deduction. So that's quite a bit more deduction over time than what we currently receive. So additionally, taxpayers will receive a tax credit in the amount of the lesser of 10%, or $300 of their tax bill. And I don't know that through the legislative session that's been maybe conveyed always accurately. So if, for example, let's say you had a $200,000 or a $2,000 tax bill after deductions and everything, you're going to get 10% of that. So you get a $200 tax credit, not a $300. Because most of the way that was communicated was it would be a $300 tax credit. Well, it's the lesser of 10% or $300. So if you have a $4,000 tax bill, you're going to get a $300 credit. You'll max it out, but it doesn't go above that.
Is that per parcel or just on your house?
No, is that, I think that's probably just on your house,
I believe, yeah, I'd have to
Yeah.
check to make sure to confirm that, though.
because your other parcels would fall into the 33%, I would think.
Yeah, I think it's just for your residential properties.
Additionally, there's a 2% circuit breaker properties, as I just mentioned, will now receive a 33% deduction, which those have received no deduction before. So they'll get a 33% deduction moving forward. And personal property tax will be reduced beginning in 2028. That piece is a couple years down the road. But you put all those together, that's quite a bit of tax deduction, which means quite a bit of reduced revenue then for the municipalities. The full effect of those changes then are going to result in lower assessed valuations of property, which is going to make it very difficult, if not impossible, to meet levy demand necessary to make debt service obligation payments while also working to lower tax rates. In other words, when AV is going down, it's hard to also decrease tax rates with that and still bring in the money you need to bring in to pay your obligations, particularly in debt service. But even without lowering the tax rates, taxpayers will begin to see property tax relief. So if we're not able to lower our tax rate, as we had hoped to do, taxpayers are still going to see a deduction in what they're paying. Because either AV is going to, grow much more slowly than it's been growing because of those deductions, or it's going to drop. It's going to depend on the community a little bit and on the year, but we're going to see a difference in that AV. So, but until the new AV is calculated by the county for 2026 using the new system, and they're learning too, because I'm sure it's a lot of changes for them, it will not be entirely clear how those rates will be fully affected. And this will likely be sometime in September as we receive 2026 AV numbers. But in the meantime, we're studying the effects of the operations fund levy and budget. And I can tell you this will lead to reduced budgets for operations. And we're beginning to work through potential budget reduction areas within the operations fund. Proportionally, there's not much in the operations fund that we would consider to be discretionary. The reason is you're paying transportation out of there, you're paying any of your maintenance costs, your utilities, your insurance, custodial, you're paying all those things out of there, which takes a significant portion of the operations to pay that. There is some left, probably in the range of $200,000 to $300,000 that we would consider to be somewhat discretionary. So we're working through all that, and then also looking at what it will take to, make that budget, because we'll have to do that. As I said, much of the fund is dedicated to salaries, insurance, utilities, transportation costs. So we're working through all those with a fine-tooth comb to figure out how we reduce the discretionary funding. We'll have a better idea, I think, within the next month, and be able to have a more informed discussion with the board while we wait for the fall AV values for 2026 to come in. Again, statutorily, they're supposed to be in August. The last couple of years, we haven't gotten them until at least September. We think with the changes, it'll probably be at least that before we can really see what will those assessed valuation numbers do in 2026. If they remain a little higher than the state average, which they typically have, that will help us from a revenue standpoint for 2026, but we'll have to wait and see. The education goal is also coming along on pace. The career coaching model is being implemented, and the career coaching team will meet again this fall to finalize activities at each grade level that will occur to promote career awareness for our students. And the portrait of a learner skills have been identified. We saw those at the June meeting, and will also be ongoing this fall to identify the learning opportunities to promote and assess those skills as kids move through time here over the next couple of years. So that's a quick update on the quarterly goals, and be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions or comments?
So regarding our goal to reduce the debt service rate, are you anticipating that we're going to abandon that goal?
Well, it'll be up to the board what you want to do, whether you want to abandon it or not. I do see there's going to be a need to adjust how we approach that because I think as a district, you really just can't lower we could lower our tax rate as AV was going up. When AV stops going up because the legislature has made it stop going up, you cannot also lower your tax rate then, or you won't bring in enough money to pay your debt service obligations and your operations
That
fund
includes
as
any
well.
future debt, right?
Good, yes. Mhm.
I guess that's where, having read this, I get a little concerned of what we approved at the June board meeting. And then hearing this month, hearing that we could potentially be at risk of not meeting our debt service obligations. And then hearing that there's so little discretionary spending within the operations budget. But yet, spending seems to be spend. And it just seems like during such a challenging time, you would certainly want to be making every effort to conserve and rather than continue to spend. And it just seems to be a little contradicting to each other.
Sure. And we are looking at those discretionary pieces now. And you really have a year as we work through to respond to it, because our first payments under the new plan won't come until June of 2026. We have some time to work through that. And that's why as we work through the fall here, want to make sure we have a good plan in place. We have some ideas and we think we can achieve it. What makes this much more difficult for us, beyond the legislative changes, are the fire territory impact as well. And as we met with Policy Analytics, we took that into account as well, and they just have started to get some numbers for us of what that begins to look like with all of that put together. But remember, too, our goal for a long time was to hold our tax rates steady. And if we just do that, if we just hold those tax rates steady, even if with AV slowing down, and we think in our communities, you're going to see AV slow down. It won't be rising like this. Will it drop? We don't know that for sure. I think what we see in the foreseeable future is a slowdown of those AV rates, which will allow us to meet our debt service obligations. I think what you can't do, though, is you can't drop your rate a lot and have AV go down a lot, because then you don't bring in the funds that you need. So we see a strategy that looks probably more like keeping your rates level, not increasing them, but keeping those rates level, I think can keep us in a good place. But we will still have to make some adjustments in operations, which can have some effect too on the education fund as you have transfer back and forth. But as we pull the different levers to try to manage that, we see a way to do it, but we need to refine that a little bit here over the next month or two.
So is there a way for you to give us a 35,000-foot overview of what that option is at this point?
A little
As
early.
opposed to wait until,
Yeah.
I guess it would be nice to hear it more in a fluid process as opposed to getting to a point where, kind of like when we put the debt service rate down to where it is, it was brought to us as either this option or this option. We're the ones
Right.
that had to ask for the middle in between. And to have, again, what I would say is better communication along the way about how we're getting there would be helpful, in my opinion.
I would say give us a month. I think it might be helpful too if we have someone like from Stiefel come in to kind of help walk everybody through that too, to kind of better understand options, because they are, or Stiefel or Policy Analytics, to help walk us through that. Again, we're getting some ideas. I think that reducing spending is going to be part of that strategy. In looking at our transfer amounts and things like that will be part of those strategies. We'll also then have to begin to look out into 27 and 28 because the incremental reductions on the deductions will increase a little bit in each of those years. Right now, on paper, there is the thought of losing our lit revenues in 2028. I still think there'll be some legislative changes that will happen here in 26, maybe 27, because I think what's going to happen, I don't think so much in our specific case, but I think there are some districts that this legislative policy change is going to affect very negatively, maybe more so than was anticipated. So I could see the legislature coming back and making some changes to this in the next year or two as well.
But thinking ahead right now, you're thinking we can keep things level and keep our rate the same or not raise the rate, but that's
Yeah, I think that's the general strategy.
I'm glad to hear that rather than going the other way.
Yeah. Again, we're going to have Steve will work through a little bit more and do some modeling for us. The information we've gotten thus far has been mostly from policy analytics. And again, they're on the forefront of this right now and doing a nice job of working it all through. But they also won't make decisions for us locally. We'll have to take that information and then think about, here are some different options and ways to manage that change in revenue. And again, I think I felt better. I think after talking with them, we met, I forget what day that was, maybe Thursday last week. Felt a little bit better after talking with them, thinking, okay, we can manage this over time. You just can't, we'll have to adjust a little bit how we look at that, rate and levy, that whole piece. And I think everybody in the state's going to have to do the same thing because where we've been so focused on rate in the past, what's going to happen as we move into the future, because this whole game has changed, people will be a little bit more focused on what the actual levy is, which is, it is a paradigm shift for how we think about that, but none of us created that change, so we'll have to adjust to it and make sure that it works for us locally. But yeah, Mr. Bryant, to answer your question, I think give us a month, and I think it might be a good timing then, maybe here, and I'm guessing around early August, to get the board together, can have a work session and kind of work through that, look at some options, and just kind of, as we get a better understanding of it too, begin to lay that out and say, here's some directions we think we can go, and get your input and see what we think is going to work best over the next couple of years.
That'd be better than, I like that alternative, being in the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Instead of just waiting till the end and.
Yeah, and you should
October
be.
coming
Yeah.
to us.
Yep.
Thanks, yeah. that'd be
Sure.
good.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
All right, next item on the agenda, approval of the June 9, 2025 regular meeting minutes. So I need a motion to approve the June 9th, 2025 regular board meeting minutes as presented.
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Ward. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Hensel. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Oh, sorry, Austin, I'm going to have to remember that you were an aye as well?
Correct.
All right.
And we'll have about a second delay, I think, just because of the audio, but we can hear you okay.
All right, I will remember that you're not in the room. I apologize. Next item on the agenda, consider approval of financial reports. Mr. Herbert.
Thank you, Mrs. Cherry. Our June fund balance in property and state tax supported funds came to $9,582,696. Education fund had actual expenditures of $1,575,078. Our debt service fund had actual expenditures of $6,556,944. Our operations fund had expenditures of $1,137,674. We transferred $275,000 from the education fund to the operations fund, and this brings our transfer for the year totaling to 11.22% of the total education fund revenue and 12.16% of the total state tuition support. So I would ask for the board's approval of our June financial reports, and happy to answer any questions.
So moved.
Well, how about you let me ask first? Motion to approve financial reports as submitted.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Bryant. Second.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Ward. Comments or questions?
I have a couple questions here. Was looking at the appropriations report given to us this month, and went back and looked at the appropriations report from the end of the first quarter. That was printed 4/7. And I went back and looked at the one that was given to us in January, dated 1/9. And on this month's appropriation report, on page 1 of 7, underneath the Office of Superintendent, I find I think it's two items that weren't there from the January 9th approval of the appropriations report. One is down towards the bottom of page 7, has a net appropriation of 0, month to date and expenditure of just over 31,000. And then again, that line is showing a negative 31,000. Kind of wondering what that is that was spent. that wasn't originally appropriated for.
I think I know what you're talking about, but I'm trying to find it on, because I know there were 3 different attachments.
Well, that was.
Is that the next agenda item? Is he talking about the quarterly reports?
I believe if,
Yeah,
yes.
put on the next one,
Okay.
because that's the appropriations.
Okay,
Okay. I will wait for the quarterly reports.
all
Oh,
right,
You
sounds
know what's
good.
coming.
I think I do know the answer to that, but I just want to see it to make sure.
All right, any other questions on the financial reports?
No.
All in favor? Aye. That passes unanimously. Next item on the agenda, quarterly reports, Mr. Herbert.
Thank you, Mrs. Cherry. Here, as we are halfway through the year, if you just look at dividing the year in half, we would have the expectation that our expenses would be roughly 50%. As we look here at the end of the second quarter, we have the education fund either spent or encumbered at 52.46%, and we have the operations fund spent or encumbered at 55.26%. Obviously, this has to do with some timing issues there. And the other part is, again, I like to mention that these are targets that we're shooting for. Again, these were budgets that were set back in October, so we don't necessarily have the exact idea of what type of growth we're going to see coming through February. I would also point out, if you did look at the June quarterly report attachment, for a revenue side, we should be at 49.73% through this time of the year, and we're actually at 54.41%. So even though we do see the expenses up just a tick, the revenue is following right in line with it. So again, this is nothing that we've seen as being unusual, and have no concerns over this right now. But that is, again, the quarterly report. Be more than happy to answer Mr. Bryan's question here in a second, or any other questions that the board might have.
Motion to approve quarterly report as presented.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Bryant. Second.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Hensel.
So as I was getting ahead of us, Mr. Herbert,
Can I ask a question real quick? In the documents that we can see, there's 1, 2, 3. Do you know which of those,
well,
in what order you're looking at?
I can't speak to
I think
that,
it's the first one.
Mrs. Cherry, because I've noticed that it appears that during the first quarter, or at the beginning of the year, and at this time of year, the appropriations report is presented differently than it is in the April. Having gone back and looked at the last couple of years, you'd have to ask Mr. Herbert why that is.
Yeah, I know. It looks like what they did, they just broke it out. So prior, it looks like they had just put it
You
all
say they,
into
who's they?
Kim, our treasurer. She's who runs these reports. So when she prints those reports in the past, I think she's done it as one PDF file. As I look through here, it looks like you have one that is just the education fund, you have one that is just the operations fund, and I'm going to assume, I'm going to look here real quick, yeah, the third one is just the debt service fund. So that's why you have 3 separate attachments. They just weren't merged into one file this time. And so I believe you're referencing the operations fund. That appears to be the document with 7 pages.
Correct.
And then what page number did you say? I'm sorry.
It's on page, it says page 1 of 7,
Okay.
First page.
and it's towards the bottom.
Did you say,
Zero appropriation, and it has an expenditure of $31,345.76.
Near the bottom.
5
Yep.
from the bottom.
Okay.
Operations office.
I can look in this to confirm, but I believe what that is that was our SBOA audit. We had to pay the accounting firm to come in and do that. And how they do that is they essentially just take it out of our payment that they reimburse, or they send to us, so the tax payment. It would just I would have to check to make sure that it's in, and it could be just it was put into the wrong account number. Not saying that that is the likelihood, but that's why it would be in there like that. And that's why it would have shown up, because it's a unusual, not an unusual, I mean, it's like an expected expense, but it changes from year to year on how they want us to account for that. But I will confirm, but I'm 95% sure that that was our SBOA audit.
That is the same amount that's listed in the next agenda item for the SBOA audit.
Oh,
It is.
I'm going to say that would be my,
Another question I had was, on that same page, a few lines above that, Office of Superintendent, asterisk 401, parentheses A, and I think that means certified, the last part, because it's cut off. Year to date, that had a 0 appropriation, And year-to-date, that's been, had an expenditure of $12,190 and change. Again, my question is the expenditure being there without it having been on the original appropriation that we approved back in January? And then I don't recall getting an update that, again, in both those instances, I guess what I'm looking at and wondering about is, we're asked to approve an appropriations report in January. And then I understand appropriations, you move some things around, but it seems like there doesn't seem to be a continuity of communication sometimes when large amounts are starting to get moved.
Sure.
And so
And
now I'm wondering
it's-
what that particular line is for.
Yeah, it is exactly what you had said. So what we do is I appropriate kind of whole dollar amounts for certain sections, and then as we actually make those payments, so that would have been a 401A payment. As we make those payments, we can specifically line those out to the exact line item that they're supposed to go to, and then we will adjust the appropriation. So for that one, I'd have to go back and dig and try to find exactly where it's coming from. But essentially, it would be just moved from one line to the other line. So it's not additional expenses that are outside of what would be expected. It's just where it is appropriated, that we try to keep
what
it a
positions
little
does
more
that cover?
condensed. I'm sorry?
What positions does that cover in the corporation?
That would typically be myself, Dr. Schaefer, and Dr. Walker.
Another question, and again, taking the time that I did to kind of look through this, having to kind of dig through it to get my questions because things caught my eye. Some of the account titles have asterisks and some don't. What's the difference between a line item that has an asterisk and that it doesn't? What's that mean to you?
Honestly, there's no significance to the asterisk. It could be just the way that it is formatted in our accounting system, but there's no rhyme or reason to, if there is an asterisk, it doesn't mean anything for that specific account.
Okay. Those are my questions. I guess my last comment would be is that, in my mind, it would be a little nicer. In the past, you've had some things, notables in the executive content area, that I think it would be helpful, at least to this board member, to see an explanation of something that had a zero appropriation and then be such a, if it's $10,000 more, I guess it'd be nice
Sure.
to see an explanation
Okay. Yep.
of what happened. So, because the other question I had is that had zero appropriation, and from the beginning of the year, the two of those total $40-some thousand. Where did the money move? What line items did the money move from to get to those items?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, and I can get that answer for you, but I don't have that off the top of my head.
Some of that was a little bit of what we talked about back on April 14th of April. Called you on the phone and talked to you, but then I never really got an answer to my questions and follow-up. So part of that is in here tonight, and it's follow-up. But again, if I'm being asked to approve a report, then again, I'm going to do my due diligence, make sure I understand that
Sure.
report.
Yep.
All right, any other comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Next item on the agenda, approval of claims, Mr. Herbert.
Thank you, Mrs. Cherry. Our claims here for the month, we have pre-written claims of $7,030,910.87, and we had traditional claims of $1,242,318.74. That brings our total claims for the month to $8,273,229.61. Obviously, with this being June, that number is significantly higher than we typically would see in a normal month because of the debt payments that we make in June and December. So that was roughly the $6.4 million of that total number, which explains why this number is obviously significantly higher than we typically would see. So again, would ask for the board's approval of our claims here for the month of June, and happy to answer any questions.
Motion to approve claims is presented.
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Ward. Second.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Bryant. Any comments or questions?
I've got a question. I noticed on the accounts payable, there's almost 3 pages worth of Amazon purchases. I got 2 questions with that. Who gets the okay? Who all has the okay to purchase those?
Yeah, so we buy everything with Amazon. And majority of that is going to be office supplies or different supplies that are needed throughout the district. So really, it's going to depend on who it is that is ordering that order at that time. So typically for a school, one of our buildings, what would happen is the treasurers are typically the ones who place those orders. It's run through SpendBridge, which is our procurement software. So they would place the order they would enter the order. And before the order is placed, it would then go to the principal for their approval. If it is set, and we have it also set that if it's over $500, then it actually has to come to myself for an additional approval as well. But for typically, and again, I saw that last month and I added everything together and it was roughly $17,000. I didn't add this month together, but I would assume it's going to be about that same amount. So not that it's a minimal amount, but it is a lot of smaller dollar amount items.
Right,
And so
right.
typically, anything on there that's under $500 would require the building approval, or it could be a director, if
Okay.
you're thinking like operations.
So there is some oversight on
Yeah,
that, which
yeah.
I assume there was. It leads into my next question, because, I mean, Amazon's at my house every day, too. So, but there's times that we get the wrong stuff. I don't know that I've ever really noticed, maybe there is, some stuff that was ordered wrong, or do you guys ever send anything back?
We have, I mean, the way our system is set up is it's pretty good to track on what's been delivered, what's been sent. If we do receive something that we weren't supposed to, we can reach back out to Amazon.
Well, yeah, and send it back
is
for free, right? So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
just want to you just wonder, I mean,
Oh,
surely
sure.
there's stuff that's not right that
Right,
needs to get sent
right.
back. Is it getting sent back?
I mean, it's all run through and it's all automated, and so it does a really good job of tracking what has been delivered and what's been received, and then making sure that we have all that information. And yes, we have Amazon Business, so we get the free delivery, we get everything that you would typically get with an Amazon Business account, which is fairly similar to what you have for your own personal Amazon accounts.
I guess, building off of this, even if it's under $500 and the principal signs off on it, when you in the business office see that there was an expenditure with Amazon from the high school, does it simply say Amazon purchase, or does it say what it is?
It'll say what it is, yeah. I can go in and pull the actual invoices and see line item by line item, every single item that was
So
ordered.
you can see everything?
yes.
Okay, that's kind of what I was getting at, too.
Yep.
So, all right, thanks.
I have one other question on the noteworthies that you put in the executive content of the board packet. The town of Danville, the transportation building permit, that is just the cost for them to look at our plans of what we're going to do on that piece of property.
I thought that was outrageous.
How many hours did they spend on that?
That I can't, I'm sorry, I'm laughing at the dog, but,
Austin, was that your response? You know the answer to that question? If you do, please speak up.
That was outrageous.
he clearly is not happy either.
Who let the dogs out?
I don't know the time that was put into that. I just know that was the cost of the building permit for them to issue it. I do agree that seems rather significant.
And does that
and
include
steep.
the cost of the occupancy permit?
I would have to go back and confirm, but I believe that should be all the permits that we need for that project.
Okay.
Is that
Now-
at their discretion on what they charge for, I mean, they
I think
charge a
there's like
school
a
that? I mean,
mathematical equation
Yeah.
that they use to get to that number. It's
is it
just
the same
like-
mathematics they're using when they need to purchase new fire
It's,
equipment?
it's based on an estimated number of hours and whatever that hourly rate is. I know that, but I don't recall specifically beyond that how that
Based upon
works.
that, whose hours? Our hours or their hours?
Theirs.
We don't know how many hours they put into it.
We wouldn't have any way of knowing that.
Wow.
It's a chunk, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
All right, any other questions? All in favor? Aye.
Big thumbs up.
That passes unanimously. Next item on the agenda, approval of payroll claims. Mr. Herbert.
Thank you, Mrs. Cherry. We have two claims here for our payroll for the month of June, moving into July. We had a June 17th payroll of $736,433.12. And we had a July 3rd payroll of $717,785.09, bringing total payroll claims for the month to $1,454,218.21. Obviously, we had talked about in the quarterly that expenses are slightly elevated, but not anything out of the ordinary. This is the time where we start to catch up a little bit, typically here through June and July, because we don't have as many staff who are working that we're paying. So we'll start to see that come back a little bit. That's also, hence why you're seeing these payrolls obviously have been a little bit less than what we would expect as well. So again, more than happy to answer any questions and would ask for the board's approval of our payroll claims here for the month.
Motion to approve payroll claims as presented.
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Ward. Second.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Bryant. Comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
That passes unanimously. Next item on the agenda, consider approval of personnel recommendations. Dr. Schaefer.
Thank you, Mr. Cherry. I recommend approval of the personnel report, and this includes, just a quick summary, renewal of our returning fall lay coaches. It adds an additional special education teaching position. It adds summer days to the contracts of Mrs. Stemke and Mrs. Jackson. It adds a $1 per hour increase to our returning general education instructional assistants to bring them in line with our classroom special education instructional assistants. Since as we move into next year, all of our general IAs will serve all general classroom students next year, whether they're special education or general education. We still do have specialized areas in special ed preschool, in our life skills classrooms, in our behavioral support rooms that will continue to receive the additional allotment for working in those specialized special education areas. But with that, I would recommend approval of the personnel report.
Motion to approve personnel report as submitted.
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Ward. Second.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Hensel. Comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
That passes unanimously. Next item on the agenda, consider approval of 2025-2026 DCSE handbooks. Dr. Schaefer.
Thank you. Student handbooks have been updated, I say, as much as we can complete at this point in the year due to the timing of some of the legislation that passed here. We still are looking for more guidance on some of the attendance changes. You will see attendance changes in the handbooks if you look at those. Those are still coming out of last year in the series of changes that were made. Those are in practice, but we just want to get them updated in the handbooks. We'll have some adjustments to those moving forward. The legislature has compelled the Department of Education to do a lot of things, and one of those is to give us guidance on the further attendance changes. So you'll see a few more of those here later this fall once we get all of that guidance and have a chance to look it over here locally. But for now, for each of the handbooks, which is Little Warrior Learning Center, the elementary handbook, which is North and South combined, middle school, and then high school, there are really some typical annual updating. We did update our acceptable use agreement for technology, making that a responsible user agreement. But the changes are very similar between elementary, middle, and high school. I did make, just for transparency purposes, you may have noticed if you looked earlier and looked again, the elementary handbook with the edits in it, there were two different versions of that. Earlier in the week, I had the wrong one in there, put the right one in there today. The changes are the same, and the summary page had all those changes. There's nothing changed to it. I just want to make sure you could see those changes in the correct version of that handbook. So everything else is as it has been, and would recommend approval of those handbook changes so we can get those updated for the beginning of the year.
All right, motion to approve the 2025-2026 DCSE handbooks as presented.
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Ward. Second.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Hensel. Comments or questions?
So I noticed a big change in the excused, unexcused absences at the high school. Is that going to be clearly communicated to parents? Because I'm going to tell you, parents aren't going to read this, but they're going to be really frustrated because I mean, there's times where your kids wake up, they have a fever, they don't feel good, you don't want them at school. I call, say Carter's not gonna be at school today, but not sick enough to go to the doctor. But that's gonna be now unexcused per this, is that correct?
Yes, and we're going to see a few more changes in that as something that went through legislation again this summer. And what all schools in the state of Indiana are going to do is have to comply with, and for the first time in my career, the Department of Education is now saying through the legislature what excused and unexcused is going to be. So we no longer really make that determination moving forward. It's state law as it's handed down to us from the Department of Education. Mrs. Walker or Dr. Walker, you may have more info on that.
Yeah, some of that will shift slightly with the legislative changes. But one of the things that they did do is talk about their, once you get to 10, whether they are excused or unexcused absences, there are now processes for the state. So I agree that it's going to be a change, not only for us, but for all schools. So we'll put out a good amount of communication because it's going to be a difference for sure.
I mean, the state won't do anything regardless.
Yeah.
I mean, I had kids in my own classroom that were
Yes.
beyond the excuse, like,
Yes.
I mean, and nothing happened to them this last year,
Yeah.
regardless of the new law.
And,
So,
and one of the changes too we'll see is those conferencing requirements with elementary and middle school that were in there this last year, those extend to high school. They go K-12 this year also with new legislation.
I mean,
Why do you suppose it is that nothing happened to those kids? What's your perspective as a teacher
well,
over there?
parents don't come in and have the meetings. Kids don't send home the letters. They don't care.
You said nothing happened to them.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be the school corporation responsible for making it happen to them?
Well, weren't they supposed to be prosecuted? Isn't that what the law states?
Yeah, you have to, they have
That's
to be
not gonna
sent to the
happen.
prosecutor.
And again, I think that comes back to,
That's lawmakers
Yeah.
making,
we have to hold them
Poor
accountable as
decisions.
well. And if they're telling that they're willing us to do that for us, then as a corporation, we've got to step up and put their feet to the fire as well. If you're saying you're going to do it, then say it. Don't, I mean, that's, you can't sit there and talk them to death. At some point, processes for expulsion and suspension exist for a reason.
That is another change, is we can't expel students now for attendance reasons.
So why even have
I
that?
know, then you're gonna prosecute.
Thank you for putting that out.
Yeah.
So again, I'm
Thank
going
you,
to circle this back
legislatures,
around. If
for
the parents aren't going to read the
making no
handbooks and they have a problem with it, the communication that needs to be put out as you release the videos to parents about the changes in the handbook is also include how they contact the representatives and senators down at the State House, and they go directly there and say, this is where the change came from.
They need to
Should
know
be.
where the change came from, because the people that will feel the brunt of this is our front office workers. They're the ones that are gonna get the calls of parents who are ticked off, right? Or assistant principals or whoever it may be, our frontline workers are gonna get the calls.
And then-
And I think you have, like, well, we can't do anything. Legislatures are real smart.
And I think that then also would come back, tie around into what we plan to do, that when those kids have those absences, and you can't expel them for being absent from school, as they miss the work, are we going to tighten up on the amount of time that they have to get work done that they've missed from those absence days? Or are we going to let it just run and run and run, and then at the end of the quarter, as long as they get the work in, they get their passing grade? And if we're going to do that, then we're as much part of the problem as the rest of them.
It also takes money to do that. We're limited in our funds. Is that
Takes
where we
money.
want to spend our money?
To do what?
To prosecute them?
No, I don't.
I'm just saying, I don't want to spend money doing that. I think we have better things to do.
Well, then again, let it come back around and pull it back in, is we're saying let the kid be as absent as much as the parent wants to be absent. But that means that if you miss assignment today and it's not done with back end, completed within 24 hours, you get a 0, and the 0 doesn't go away. You can go ahead and complete the work so you're knowledgeable for the upcoming chapter test. But if you didn't turn your work in when it was due, you get a 0. And it doesn't go away. So in the end, you got too many zeros, what happens to your grade? You failed a class. You get a chance to repeat it.
All right, well, we're going to do the best we can when the school year starts to share this, because they're right. Parents don't necessarily read this book, so we'll put that out in a manner in which they will read that so that they are current in their knowledge. Any other comments or questions? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
That passes unanimously. Next item on the agenda, School Board Policy Review, Dr. Schaefer.
Yes, as part of the school board's ongoing commitment to the review of our board policies, the following policies are reviewed this evening, which is 2290, Employee Assistance Program, 2330, Homework, speaking of which,
Yeah, that's what.
2430, Corporation-Sponsored Clubs and Activities, 2450, Title I Parent Involvement, and 2460, Special Education. I went through the policies. They do appear to be in good standing, don't require any additional updates, but certainly updates can be made if the board should so choose to do so.
Comments, questions, thoughts?
The only thought is depending on how the changes attendance related, we may have to go back and adjust that one policy.
All right, next item on the agenda.
Make a comment real quick, Beth.
Go ahead.
Sorry, thank you. As I spoke to most of you guys today and to Dr. Schaefer about our transportation policy for transfer students, I would just like to ask that we put that on the agenda for next month to look at potentially accepting transfer students on the bus whose houses we're already driving directly past. And also if the transportation director could get us some information just so we can make a good decision around that, if that makes sense, how many students that might affect and be able to help out those families.
Okay,
Okay, yeah.
that
So you
sounds
just want
good.
to discuss it, or you want it in an actionable item based upon discussion?
If the information makes sense to everybody, I wouldn't mind voting on changing the policy.
Mr. Brown, is there any particular information that you would like us to try to prepare here prior to that August meeting?
Yeah, in my conversations with Beth and Christina today, I think they brought up some good points about just, how many students would this, if we change the policy back to similar to how it was before, where a family could, if their bus was already traveling directly past their house, with the transportation director's permission, how many of those families are we potentially looking at opening up transportation back to? I think would be helpful information, just to make sure we're not overwhelming the buses.
Okay, yeah, well, I think we can pull that before then. Thank you.
I will throw out there,
Thank you.
just so the Director of Transportation can think about it, based upon hearing, it almost sounds like it's, based upon the scan technology, is can the Director of Transportation come up with an application process for a non-resident student to ride the bus, and then they somehow then determine that so that that person is, right on the route, or, they're 3/4 mile off. It almost sounds like it's an application process that's handled by the Director of Transportation to some degree.
I want to make sure I'm understanding what you're saying. When you say application process, do you mean the families would apply, or you mean through an app?
Call her and ask her.
I think that would be up to the Director of Transportation to think about how they would want to handle it, that if the proposal that Mr. Brown is making that we bring forth next month to discuss is that, how is she going to manage that to be effective in terms of not having what we had happen before, but addressing a need that if you do have a bus that's going by on the boundaries, going by a kid that lives on the east side of the road, he's out of district, but we're picking up a kid on the west side of the road that's in district, but on the other hand, if you got a kid that lives a 1/4 mile east of that boundary last pickup, you don't want kids walking down county road. So I think that person at Direct Transportation is going to need some leeway and some protocols in terms of how they handle the calls and why they may allow one but not another.
Right. Yeah,
So-
okay, thanks.
That's what I mean by that process.
I'd like to know too, because I know, the tax dollars follow the child, but we don't get the full amount, right?
Well, you're not receiving local property tax dollars like the
So
feed
it's
the
not-
operations fund or debt service for out-of-county students,
It costs us
out-of-district
money to
students.
have transfer students, right? So another idea might be, is there a fee associated with something like this? Like, what would it cost to have them ride the bus? I don't know if we can do that legally, but that would be another option.
I agree with you. I think the difficulty becomes in is how do you apply the fee? Because then if you have somebody that lives on the east side of Indianapolis,
Well, I'm saying for these same students who are transfer students
so I
That
think you
live
can,
on the
that
county
live on the
line.
other side of the road,
Yeah.
that yes, you could, but it comes with a
A fee.
transportation
Right.
fee.
Figure
That
out
would be,
How many miles out they are from the bus route and how much fuel, there's probably.
or
a simple
even if
way
they
to do
live
it.
there, I mean, it's still taking
So-
somebody else's
Could-
seat, and there's no guarantee that that bus isn't gonna be full forever.
Yeah.
I mean, those are just things to consider, and I would like to see, like, cost-wise, what does that look like?
Well, and I would like to remind everyone, we do have resident students that are in the walk radius that we
That's
cannot
right.
provide buses to. So
That's what I.
it's a struggle for me to want to pick up non-resident students when we can't get our resident students on the bus.
And that's what I told Austin today. We have kids within a 1 mile radius, and even this winter when it was below zero, I reached out to Schaefer and said, is there any way that we could have buses go back and pick up these kids in a couple of spots after they've ran their routes so that our kids aren't walking within a mile when it's -10 wind chill? Even if they're late to school, we're helping them out
well, I guess
during this cold. So I think there's a lot of things we need to think about, transfer versus in-district, and then who's to say that Johnny's mom isn't gonna be like, oh, I'm just around the corner, I'm not on the route, but I'm
Correct.
just gonna drop off, so,
I can't disagree with all that. That's why I think
Yeah.
ultimately Director of Transportation, in terms of that, what I said is an application process,
Yeah.
thinks about how they would approve or disapprove of something. But having you heard you remind me that we do have kids within a mile radius that aren't getting a ride, then I'd like to also see a solution to that, irregardless of whether or not we would make this adjustment. Because, again, I think that those people have property taxes that are going towards the transportation department.
and they're not doing
And
transportation.
So,
Well,
Lots to discuss. then.
we've given staff a list of things and Mrs. Swanson a month to get us some information,
Something
and
to do.
we'll see what we get. Because she's not going to be doing anything in the month of July.
Well, I do think it would be beneficial, like, if she could get it to us before the normal board packet goes out, so we can sit and think about it, chew on it, ask
Well, yeah.
questions, maybe. Sometimes it's hard when you're looking at it on Thursday or Friday or Sunday night for a
Sure.
Monday meeting.
Yeah, we'll do the best we can with that, and she may be better able to do that here in the next 2 weeks than the week or two after that anyway, so we'll see if we can get that to you as soon as possible.
All right, thanks, Austin. Next,
Thank you.
next item on the agenda, consider approval of gift donations. Mr. Herbert.
Thank you, Mr. Cherry. We have one gift of this evening. This would be from two of our teachers at North Elementary, Mrs. Ziegler and Mrs. Blankenship, held a fundraiser. They've done this in the past where they raise dollars to then help support our Angel Fund through our food service department. Happy to report that this year they are going to be donating $2,392.45 to the Angel Fund from our Danville North Elementary students. So would appreciate all the hard work that they do to raise those dollars and would ask for the board's approval of this donation.
All right, motion to approve gifts donations as presented.
so moved.
Thank you, Mr. Bryant. Second. Thank you, Mr. Hensel. Comments or questions?
So just remind me, so we must have set the limit at $1,500?
Yes, sir.
Correct.
We did.
Yeah. And I'd also like to say kudos to these teachers for teaching our young students early on how to give back. I think that's fantastic.
Appreciate their efforts.
All in favor? Aye. That passes unanimously. Next item on the agenda, Superintendent's Report, Dr. Schaefer.
Thank you. I just wanted to give a kind of a quick update here on progress of construction. Continues to come along well. The 13 new classrooms at the high school on the northeast side of the building they're nearly complete. There's a little bit of finishing to do in those, but they are, I would say, all but done on those. In the adjacent east end that we just recently renovated into, demolished into, they already have the cinder block walls up, which it looks much different, and a lot of the steel stud walling is in place. There are 8 of those rooms that back up to the new classrooms that have to get fully renovated before the start of school. So in this next month, there's a lot of finishing work in there that'll occur in 8 of those classrooms. The rest of those classrooms in the east wing we'll be working on through and up until Christmas time. So the teachers in math, English, and foreign language, those are the areas we're talking about. They're going to get relocated into those new rooms by the start of school. The existing humanity classroom areas that have been demolished, those have new block walls, new steel stud walls, and most of those are already formed up, which is great to see. It was amazing how much work got done in, I'd say, the middle of June, and how quickly they worked, and it looks good. So again, that'll be done around the end of the first semester. The new offices and guidance areas are also nearly complete, and they will also be ready for the start of school. We've been through there a few times, and other than just they're working on final cabinetry and some things like that are happening in those areas right now. The new secure front entrance is receiving flooring and finishing touches. Terrazzo work is nearly done. Significant work is occurring in the career and tech ed areas wing to reconfigure that space. A lot going on there right now. The pool is currently being tiled, and the new drain lines have been installed, and yesterday they started pouring the actual concrete decking. The concrete bleachers are in place. The drain lines around the pool are in place. They're starting to pour the decking concrete for the main deck. And yesterday, if you looked down the shallow end of the pool as it ramps down towards the deep end, the middle 2/3 had been tiled, and the walls have been tiled. So they're basically working on finishing out the floor as far as the actual pool tiling work goes on. They're making good progress. Concrete bleacher work, as I mentioned, that's complete. The deck resurfacing in place. Outside of entrance 17, which was our temporary main entrance last year, that work is going on to build the art and alternative school areas. A lot of excavation work going on there, right there, and I would assume they'll start on foundations here before too long. The new concrete block dividing walls in the old pool area, those have been installed. That wall work, I think, is now complete. So if you walk in from what used to be the locker rooms back there, you're coming into the back of the band and choir rooms. The dividing wall's been put in place to divide choir and band. So that's the main structural work there is now complete in the old pool area. They'll have to, obviously finish out those rooms. The athletic locker room building, also making great progress. Exterior work is nearly done. Interior work is ongoing. I know they've painted in there. They'll have to do all the finishing out work, but in that type of building, there's a little less finishing out work than you would have in classrooms and some of those spaces. The weight room will also be complete in early August, and there's work going on to reallocate the existing equipment. We're trying to figure out a way to dispose of that. We've had Lawson's come in and give us an estimate on it and that type of thing, so we kind of understand what the value is. It's probably not as much as a lot of people would think, so we're working, thinking about how to dispose of that properly, try to make revenue off of that we can and reinvest it. We also have to think about the timing of getting new weight equipment in and old weight equipment out, so we don't have downtime for our student athletes. So we're thinking and working through that process now. The replacement turf rolls in the football field have been received last week and installed already. The football field turf work, the main turf work on the main field is, I would say, all but done. They've installed all the turf. They put in the center logo. The last 2 days, they've been putting in the sand and rubber infill, working on that. We still have some work at the very, very far end of the field, on past the end zone. We're turfing that in. That finish work is still happening, but I think the rest of the field is pretty well complete. The main homestand bleachers have been erected. The new press box has been installed. There'll be finishing work for power, sound, data, and lights on the press box. All that still has to occur here through July. We'll have a new scoreboard installed. The softball field work should pick back up soon. The weather's been a little hard on that process, but they need to start installing the concrete curbing. And that work for the softball field should be done. Softball field should be done in very late fall. At South Elementary, the new kitchen wall work is complete. We had to move that wall back. They did that right off the bat in June. Central classrooms, those have all been demolished. They've since drywalled all that. They're working back through the building to finish out those central classrooms in the library. They've already laid the new flooring in the gym. So the gym flooring, which is now a complete floor, that wood has all been put in place. It looks good. And we're going to look forward to completion of South and a ribbon cutting ceremony in conjunction with Back to School Night in August. I believe we're looking at August 4th. Back to School Night, they have an afternoon session for parents and an evening session. Right now, we're thinking about putting a little ribbon cutting ceremony in the middle of that, kind of late afternoon. Send out invitations. Board members will certainly receive invitations to that, and just commemorate the time and effort that's gone into that and all the good things that will come out of it for our kids. The maintenance building drive has now been paved. Hallelujah. We didn't think it was ever going to happen, but it did happen, so that's great. And final finishing of those office areas within the building is occurring. We're nearly done. The salt barn has been put up out there using the Jersey barriers stacked together. We'll have an awning covering that will go over that. Some of our custodians, we're working on mortaring in between those barriers here this summer. The ground site work is underway, as you probably saw on the new transportation site over here. And also, I know we've had this question come up a lot. We look forward to South Warrior Way reopening as we start school. What also has to happen here yet this summer is we'll be adding that top coat of pavement to the west parking lot. So as we come in from North Warrior Way, that gets top coated, the entire west lot, and then we'll have to stripe it for vehicles, including buses, in our band practice area. All that will happen yet this summer. Once we start school, I'm glad to say this, we'll be able to divide traffic three ways. Buses will continue to exit out at the end of the school day out to US 36, where we'll flag that. Students will now be able to exit out South Warrior Way back to Lincoln Street, as we've done in the past. Parents will be able to pick up in front of the school at entrance 1 and continue on out this year out through Westview Drive. In the future, after we open up the Mill Street entrance, they'll head out through Mill Street, both out to Mackey. So we're well on our way with that, and glad to see it coming around. And I walked through all the high school, actually all the buildings this past week. Was back in the high school through there today, and they're working hard, doing a good job. Things are coming along, so good to see.
What's the moving plan for these teachers that have new rooms? Like,
We're going to be getting a team together. Well, we've talked about it in general. We're going to be pulling a team together here probably in the next week to put a very definitive plan in place. We will not, let's see, we should get occupancy on the new part of the building up front on the 24th. We plan to get our secretaries, front office staff back in then on the 25th to begin to move those things into the front office. Teachers then will be allowed to come back in the building at the high school in the front there on the 28th, which is the following Monday. And right now, they're looking at moving the orientation for students back. Instead of that Wednesday, they're going to move it back to Friday the 1st, just to give time for things to get put away. We have a lot of equipment right now in the cafeteria, so we're going to be pulling together, Mr. Land, somebody from Meyer Najum, Mr. Clodfelder, us, just looking at what can we put in place to get those things back to where they belong. We still have some things to dispose of that are in the cafeteria. We also have a lot of the old rolling carts that are filled with books. We have a place to put those books in the new places, but then we need to get rid of the old rolling carts and just really get that all put back where it's supposed to go. So we'll be working to detail out a plan, but we don't want teachers to have to do all that work themselves. We're going to help support them by getting a plan in place to move that equipment and books and things back to those spaces for them.
you might ask Miss Heather Jackson, who does National Honor Society, see if kids need some volunteer hours. Would be a great
Sure.
tap in. Plus, that's, I think, the second moratorium is around there. So just an idea.
Yeah.
They might be able to help.
We've had really good help out of the football program and some of our other athletic programs too, so that's a great idea to
They're on
reach out to
board.
them.
I know some for
Yeah.
football are going away.
They'll be traveling.
Volunteer Carter, because I'll be in school.
He'll appreciate that, yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying. I know there's the opportunity there for those National Honor Society kiddos to help out.
Yeah.
Who need those hours
Yep,
too.
good idea. Yeah,
Can we
thank you.
schedule a walkthrough for for school board members prior to school opening at the high school?
Yes, that's one of my notes here.
Okay.
We'll just need to find a time that works for all of you to do that. Yeah, high school will be interesting. I mean, there's definitely some hard hat areas in there to work through, but we're happy to go into those areas too, whatever you'd like to do. Or if you'd like to walk through South even before that too, just let me know. We can look at some dates, or I can toss some dates out to you, but do you have a general idea of when? I know we have that moratorium week the last week of July. That may or may not be good for people because a lot of people may take advantage of being on vacation the last part of the summer that week. But
I'd just like to see it before school starts again, but also with the understanding that in the last minute rush to complete a lot of stuff, we're going to have to be cognizant of what's happening construction-wise. So it might be
Could be
best if
busy.
you toss some dates out.
Okay.
And I think at this
The
point,
29th, the 30th, like when they're getting, orientation's the 1st, August 1st, so maybe.
Maybe
before
that-
or
when do
it's
you go back to school?
the 25th, the
Okay.
day after I get back from vacation.
So to me, we could do a morning, if that's easier for Corey, to start his day doing something like this rather than ending
What
his
if-
day
yeah, you
doing
just
something
pick
like
something.
this.
I couldn't do
Okay.
a morning.
Say that again?
I couldn't
Should
do
go-
morning
Okay.
because school starts at 7:10 for
Okay.
me.
How about if I look at, maybe think about an evening that the week that you mentioned, the teachers come back, are able to come back in on the 28th. So that's the
Yeah,
Monday,
Monday.
so 28th, 29th, 30th, 31st, maybe one of those evenings. I'll
Evenings
shoot
work.
some dates out too. I'll look at the calendar too, just to make sure I don't have any obvious conflicts, but
Okay.
if that works, and if not, we'll look at maybe the week before that and see if something there works better too.
Does that sound good, Austin?
Do you have any updates on the plans and costs for the administration building?
We're actually just got a little bit of information back from the architects today. Right, so yes, we do. We're planning to bring that back to the board here in August to present that information, let you look at it, see what you think. So, because we have it, we've still got some things to sort through and think through, but we just got, in fact, it was just, I think, late this afternoon. Adam sent us some updated renderings, and we had a meeting earlier today just to kind of walk and talk through some things. So if that works for you, we plan to have Adam here and walk through that and present where we're at with that here at the August meeting.
And regarding our 22 and 23, I think it's 22 and 23, but the geo bonds that you had in today's packet show a balance. Have those balances been spoken for in terms of what you plan on spending them for, or is it still?
Unfortunately, yes. It's a majority of either the football/athletic locker room is where a majority of some of those dollars are going for one of them. One of them is to finish out Richard's building or our maintenance building. And then the final that has probably the bigger balance is for the admin building.
That's 24, right?
Yeah. Yeah, 24
So,
is
because
the-
if you're saying you're still spending money on the maintenance property, then we're not necessarily going to see the savings of $500,000 over the original plans of building a new facility, correct?
No, it'll still be close because again, we didn't spend the full amount. It would be, closer to 3.5, and I think we were talking 4 originally.
Okay.
So there still should be about a $500,000 savings there. And that would have been essentially just dollars we didn't borrow.
And on the athletic building, which was 20,
That's the 23.
23,
Mhm.
that seemed like it had right now has a large remaining balance as well.
And that
You're
would be
saying a
just,
large portion of that still yet to be spent on that
Mhm.
project?
yeah.
When will it be done?
It'll be done roughly 1st of August.
I didn't know if you said that already, Tracy, or not. But maybe I didn't.
Yeah,
hear it, but-
yeah, we talked about it a little bit, but we think
It's
between
gonna be
that and the weight room are going to be
Yes,
around the 1st of
yes.
August. It'd probably give or take a week is our guess right now.
Yeah, I
we-
looked back at my notes on my phone and Nick said by the time school starts, those 2 buildings would be released to the school.
Like I said, we haven't had specific conversations about when that's going to be turned over to us, but we are not in any sort of a delay on that building.
that's good.
So,
And then my last construction question is having driven by the tennis courts tonight, the screens that are up, are those the new screens or the old screens or?
Those are the new screens. Those are the new screens, yeah.
Speaking of tennis, we took a walk around the buildings the other night. I know when most athletic teams win conference or sectionals, there's some kind of recognition or banner or board, but we're a year out, and the girls won the Sagamore Conference in 2024. I didn't know if there was any talks about that, putting up something.
Can't say there hasn't been within the athletic department, but
I don't know, just
beyond that,
kind
I
of
don't
on the
know.
radar.
Yeah. It's been, in all fairness to everybody, it's been so
Right.
busy with moving things around and taking those things down, getting them out of the road. So there probably hasn't been a lot of thought of getting those back up yet.
I don't think they've ever
yeah.
been up, because I think the girls were the first ones to ever win.
Right, for tennis
conference for
specifically.
tennis
Yeah.
specifically, yeah.
In Sagamore.
Sagamore Conference.
Yeah. That's as too, as we've looked at some of our outside recognitions, they've really aged. So that's something we're going to have to think about.
Right.
Who's responsible for the recognitions of the signs as you come in town? Because I noticed the ones for football and the sign's now gone, and there's just two posts sticking out that kind of blow in the wind there.
Wayne got them.
Yeah, I don't know.
Uh,
To be honest, those things tend to be done very sporadically as you move through the years, and if there's something the board wants to see replaced, we're happy to do that.
I just think it'd be nice to know who's responsible for it. You know,
Put them up.
I don't know who put them up. Yeah,
I
that's
recently had somebody come down and visit me,
yeah.
and they're driving in town, they know I'm on the school board, and they're like, "Wow, you guys are really proud of what's going on in the community, but schools aren't." I thought that was pretty embarrassing.
Yeah. I don't know who. It varies a lot from sign to sign and location to location. Who put those up originally? Was it the district? Was it the town who did that? And honestly, I don't know. If there's something you want to see specifically that we make sure we put up or take down,
Those
we're
coming
happy to
down
do that.
39 need to be fixed or
Yeah.
pulled out of the ground.
I think you either take them down or you get them fixed, but
I think that'll be replaced.
it just,
Right there by Brothers.
I think again, it's the corporation's name on them. If somebody else is doing it, then we need to know who's doing it.
Yeah.
It'd be no different than that. If somebody's asking for donations at a store in town on behalf of the Danville School Corporation.
Where's the one specifically you're talking about?
As you come in to Danville, coming south on 39.
South on 39.
Just past,
South of 236.
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
I got you.
Can't miss 'em.
They're on the
I got
west side of the road.
Yeah. Okay.
Right by Harvard.
I didn't know they were there, so.
Yep.
And that's hard telling if it was the town or the school or a very
looks like a
excited
town
parent
deal.
who got permission from the town or the state. It's hard telling who put those up.
I can't disagree, but it's our name, so we should know
Is it south of the old Harvey, the white Harvey building? Or is it north of that?
north, it's south of it. It's south.
South of it. Okay.
There's the Harvey building, then there's a house,
Is that where they're at?
and
Okay.
then just
Okay.
past that house.
I thought it was,
Okay.
yeah, it would be. It'd have to be south of there.
I hope somebody has a picture of it so we know exactly what was on there. But
They just had the two state
the
runner-up.
two state runner-up ones. Okay.
99 and.
Okay.
Okay. We'll check on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You bet.
Anything else?
89 and then
Nope.
2019.
Austin, do you have anything?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay. Announcements for the evening. First day for teachers is August 4th. The staff welcome back breakfast is Tuesday, August 5th at 7:30. The first day back to school for students is Wednesday, August 6th. The next regular school board meeting is August 11th at 6:30 here in the Danville Middle School Training Room. Need a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Ward. Thank you, Mr. Himsel. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Thanks, Austin.
Hey, thank you guys, thank you, Bill.
He's giving you a thumbs up.
Yep. Thanks, Austin.